So here's another interesting article about currency manipulation and a suggested solution to international trade given by the Prime Minister of Malaysia as of today, a couple hours ago. And so it says Malaysia's Mahathir, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, proposes common East Asia currency pegged to gold. And so here's a gentleman, the Prime Minister here, giving a speech during the One Belt, One Road initiative done last month. But give an idea what's going on here. It's interesting how the Prime Minister, who's newly reelected, suggested that in order to prevent some of the currency manipulation, not actually pointing at any particular countries, but he suggested that the best thing to do would be for governments to settle trade utilizing a currency just pegged to gold while keeping local and domestic currencies still readily available for the citizens, but amongst nations, they should use currencies pegged by gold. And so give an idea what's going on here, as well as you can just scroll below and read the article more for yourself. But it says Malaysia's Prime Minister on Thursday mooted the idea of a common trading currency for East Asia that will be pegged to gold, describing the existing currency trading in the region as manipulative. It says, he's quoted as saying, in the Far East, if you want to come together, we should start with a common trading currency, not to be used locally, but for the purpose of settling trade. It says the currency that we propose should be based on gold because gold is much more stable. Says he said under the current firm foreign exchange system, local currencies were affected by the external factors and were manipulated. He did not elaborate on how they were manipulated. So I would assume that he's referring to the dominance of the US dollar, as well as the Chinese renminbi in trade, and how all those currencies there, the world pretty much follows and depends upon those two nations there leading the world from an economic standpoint based upon trade and all the resources that come from both sides. So I imagine that a lot of manipulation has been done for quite some time now, and it always impacts the smaller nations. And so I assume that this has something to do with him coming up with a solution that will put gold back into play. And so just to give you an idea, it says during this Asian financial crisis, Mahathir pegged the ringgit currency at 3.8 to the dollar and imposed capital controls that was scrapped back in 2005. So it looks like he's familiar with how to, I guess, in his own country, control capital flows there in regards to the currency situation that they experienced earlier in the decade. But this is what's happening here. And it looks like we have more leaders now being more vocal on suggestions as to what would work best outside of using the dollar and this whole trade war situation, I'm assuming. So now it's going to be interesting to see how the U.S. responds, as well as the other Eastern Asian nations that he's probably hinting at, how they respond at this. And we'll see if this gets some traction as to where we'll hear more about gold being mentioned as a peg to currencies to kind of bypass this whole trade war amongst the U.S. and China. So other than that, it's interesting how Malaysian Prime Minister mentions gold and currency all in the same sentence. So we'll see if what would happen to Malaysia and Prime Minister in the days ahead. And will Malaysia be listed on the sanctions list or become what's it called, a threat to terror or something like that, like it typically happens when you mention gold and currency on an international stage. But other than that, hope all is well. Leave a comment down below. Be curious to find out what you think. Is this something to keep an eye on, or is this something that will be washed under the rug and we won't hear anything from it after this article here? So other than that, hope all is well. Thanks.